Hello, welcome back. Trigger warnings. I wanted to share a story about something that I recently experienced. So, yesterday, I was at the library and I was in the bathroom. It was just kind of like cleaning up. Well, I was finishing up, and I heard this mom, and it sounded like one kid, but it turns out it was two. They were in the stall next door, the big one. And I have no idea what happened, obviously, but it sounded like the younger one, something was happening in their world and was kind of throwing a fit. And I've been around kids long enough to know it was giving off vibes of like maybe kind of fake crying. So I can understand where the frustration could come from mom, although she wasn't really communicating or responding much to her child in this moment. What I found fascinating was the response of the other child, which I'm assuming is a little bit older. Again, I didn't see this family at all. I just heard everything that was going on. So the little one, I'm assuming, was throwing a little bit of a fit. I could hear them saying something like, don't take off my I don't know. I honestly don't know. It was a little bizarre. But what struck me was the older one started to speak up after a while and started to kind of whisper to the little one that was like, stop that right now, stop what you're doing. And everything in me was, I guess I felt really so much compassion for this little kid, even though it kind of was giving off vibes that it was a little bit fake or whatever it was, right? And so I was kind of in a quandary, in myself, what would I do if I was this mom, or what would I do in this situation if, this was my kid? Knowing what I know about compassion and how important it is to show compassion, even if the situation that's going on internally in the person that's having this fit, even doesn't really make sense, right? And I'm reminded of something that I was just listening to earlier today too. And for those of you who are believers, you've heard this. For those of you who are not, I hope that this doesn't offend you or turn you away. But there's something in the Bible that talks about love covering over a multitude of sins. And love and compassion, two different things. I'm not going to dive into the word structure, whatever, because the truth is I don't really freaking know. But when I think of those things, I think of them as two different things. But I think that they can be combined. I think being compassionate can be loving. And so I don't know, I was just thinking about this moment with this kid and what would have been the best response, and learning about self-compassion. It's connected to imagining yourself as your little kid, your little girl or your little boy. Or if that's too hard for you, imagining a relationship, if you have a niece or a nephew or you've worked with kids or whatever, imagining a little kid and what it would be like and how you would respond to them in a moment if they were having a tantrum or whatever, right? And I always think about that, and it's I would get small, I would probably get down, to their level. And I would look and to me, I don't know if it would matter so much. I guess it would be more tricky, being the parent of this kid, but that's besides the point. But just coming in soft, right? Instead of coming in angry or the older kid was doing to the little kid, of which I imagine, kind of tangent, probably learned from parent, whether it was mom or dad. So I think that's the part that kind of bothered me a little bit, because I was oh, where did this kid learn this? And then I think that's where the compassion came for the little one, was I wonder what kind of, or how this little kid is being met in their pain. Because people don't have responses just because. Not typically. It's connected to something. And it's easy for me to say that on this side. Not always am I able to practice that in a moment when I'm frustrated or I'm dealing with somebody that's having a response, and I'm still learning how to do that. But yeah, I didn't anticipate this going in this direction. But yeah, it was just an interesting experience that I kind of happened to overhear in the library bathroom. And it was just really strange for me to be able to take that, I guess, out of context in that moment and just think about this little kid, right? Even though I could kind of tell, or it sounded like it was a little bit of a fake cry, probably because of attention or whatever was going on. But to hear the older kid kind of try to shut him down, and then mom kind of started joining in a little bit, and then I just started having a lot of compassion for this little kid and like whatever was going on in its little world. So yeah, just I guess a long soliloquy to encourage compassion and figure out what that looks like for you, how to show up in compassion for yourself, but also compassion for others. And it can be tricky when things are justified, right? And that's a whole nother topic that I'm not going to dive into right now. But yeah, I think I'm going to leave that one here, and hopefully it makes sense to somebody. Hopefully it encourages somebody. But yeah, I've kind of been on this compassion kick, and I'm still trying to figure it out. But I've seen moments where it's I guess kind of making me come alive a little bit, instead of being hard on myself, because that's what I was used to, was just coming at myself with a lot of criticism and like, I guess, judgment. And yeah, so anyway, I'm gonna leave this one here, and I just encourage you to figure out what compassion might look like for you.